In a past life, my younger sister was adopted by a wealthy family, while I was taken in by a cleaner. As it turned out, there was severe infighting within the wealthy family. Her parents were cold towards her, and her older brother bullied her. In the end, she left the family penniless. In contrast, my family was very harmonious. Moreover, the young master of the wealthy family fell in love with me, a simple and poor girl, just like in an idol drama. Consumed by hatred, my sister killed me, and we were both sent back to the day of our adoption. This time, she rushed into the cleaner's arms first. Sister, this time, I get to be the female lead in the idol drama. But she didn't know that what makes a female lead isn't her background. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. My sister and I were reborn back to the day we were adopted from the orphanage. In the dean's office stood two families, the Sampson family and the Parker family. The three members of the Sampson family were all dressed immaculately. The man was in a suit and tie, and the woman was adorned with jewels. Their only son, Roy, was wearing a high school uniform, but on his feet were a pair of limited edition branded sneakers. This was the most prominent the Sampson family in City C. Mr. Sampson was a business tycoon, and the enterprises under his command contributed the largest amount of tax revenue in City C. Mrs. Sampson was a socialite, often seen at various jewelry auctions and charity dinners, mingling with popular celebrities. Their son, Roy, was known as the Prince of City C. In comparison, the Parker family next to them looked rather shabby. The man and the woman had marks of physical labor all over their hands. Their clothes were probably the best they could choose, but there were still sweat stains that hadn't been washed clean. According to the dean's introduction, the couple both worked at City C No. 1 middle school. The husband was a school worker, and the wife was a cleaner. In the past life, my sister, Wendy, didn't hesitate to choose the Sampson family. However, at this moment, she almost seemed afraid of falling behind as she pounced into the cleaner's arms. Mom, take me with you. I want to be your daughter. From now on, my name will be Wendy. Amidst my sister's excited voice, I walked towards the Sampson family. Just like that, the choices were made, and we were taken away by our respective families. As I left the orphanage, I heard the dean muttering to himself in confusion. That's strange. Wendy has always been so competitive. Whenever an adoptive family dressed a bit plain, she wouldn't even give them a glance. Why didn't she choose the real wealthy family this time? The dean didn't understand why, but I did. In the previous life, my sister went to great lengths to be adopted by the Sampson family first and became Wendy Parker. She thought that what awaited her was a life like a little princess, not to mention having Roy, the Prince of City C, as her older brother. After all, the wealthy young master and the adopted daughter were the most common pairing in romance novels. Living under the same roof, it was easy for them to develop feelings over time. However, Wendy never expected that Roy was not only not gentle like an adoptive brother but, on the contrary, he loathed her to the extreme. I hate snobbish people the most in my life. Don't think I can't see through you. You're just a scheming girl trying to get our family's money, aren't you? At home, Roy bullied Wendy. At school, he led a group of lackeys to bully her. Even if the Sampson family's parents knew about it, they would just scold him lightly. They didn't really like Wendy. The reason they adopted her was that a fortune teller told Mr. Sampson that adopting a daughter would bring him good luck in the next 10 years. Between their adoptive daughter and their biological son, the Sampson family's parents naturally favored their biological son. While Roy was bullying Wendy, he was very nice to me, who was adopted by the Parker family. He saw that I received a scholarship, got the first place in exams, went to school during the day, and helped my mom with cleaning at night. Even though life was tough, I never complained. This girl, Olivia, is really interesting, just like in an idol drama. The unruly wealthy young master fell in love with the unyielding poor girl. Later, When the Sampson family's parents passed away and the inheritance was being divided, Roy brought a team of lawyers, and Wendy was so thoroughly cheated that she left penniless, not getting a single bit of the family property. A few months later, Roy married me. He even publicly declared at the wedding, "Olivia, from now on, what's mine is yours." Unfortunately, I didn't get to enjoy Roy's property either, because a few days later, Wendy, driven to despair and madness, hit me with her car and killed me. Returning to this life, my sister didn't hesitate to choose the Parker family. Although there was no great wealth, there was no backstabbing either. She could enjoy the whole-hearted love of her parents and grow up in a happy family. She would also be pitted and protected by the wealthy young master because of her background. And eventually, she would get a fairy tale-like wedding of the century. She smiled at me and said, "Sister, this time, I get to be the female lead in the idol drama. You should experience what I've been through." Wendy's prediction was correct. Even more so. Roy's bullying came earlier than in the previous life. At school, my head was pushed into a water basin, and there was strange laughter from a group of boys around. At the moment when I was about to run out of oxygen, someone grabbed me by the back of my neck. Roy looked at me with a smile. "If you want my family's money, sure, drink all the water in the toilet. I'll give you $100,000 for each mouthful. How about it?" His lackeys cheered excitedly. I looked at Roy. The person who had gently said he loved me in the previous life was now venting his malice on me without restraint. But Roy wasn't looking at me. His eyes passed over me and looked behind me. I knew that Wendy was bending over to wipe the floor there. "Isn't that Wendy? Why is she still mopping the floor?" one of his lackeys told Roy. "Wendy's mom is a cleaner at school. She helps her mom with work both during the day and at night." A look of shock flashed in Roy's eyes, followed by a hint of pity. He shouted loudly at Wendy, "Hey, it's so cold. Stop mopping. Anyway, no one's going to check." Wendy straightened up. Her black hair fell over her shoulders, and there was a stubborn expression on her delicate face. She shook her head. "I can't. If someone comes to check and finds the floor isn't clean, Mom will have $100 deducted from her salary. I know $100 means nothing to a young master like you, but for my family, it's my weekly food expenses." After saying that, Wendy bent down and continued mopping the floor. In fact, Wendy's scheming was obvious. Among so many floors, she chose to mop right in front of Roy. She even deliberately let her hair down and found the right angle to show herself in the most beautiful way. Unfortunately, Roy fell for it. Sure enough, Roy walked up, picked up Wendy, snatched the rag from her hand, and threw it to his lackeys. "You guys, help her finish mopping the rest of the floor." He glanced at Wendy's red, frozen hands, thought for a moment, and put his coat on her. "It's too late. How are you going to get home later?" "By bike." "Ride a bike in such cold weather?" Roy was shocked, and then said authoritatively, "Wait downstairs. I'll ask my family's driver to take you home." Wendy was escorted away by Roy. Before leaving, she didn't forget to secretly look back and give me a mocking smile. A moment later, everyone left, and only I was left by the water basin. I struggled to get up and wiped the water dripping from my hair with my sleeve. "Use this." A cold voice sounded from behind. I turned around and saw Nora, the monitor of our class. She was a quiet and hard-working girl who always wore long-sleeved clothes, regardless of the season. In the previous life, she also went to help Wendy when she was being bullied. She handed Wendy a towel and advised her to expose Roy's bullying behavior. But Wendy slapped her hand away. "What do you know? That's my brother." At that time, Wendy was still daydreaming about making Roy like her. So later, Nora stopped caring about her and continued to be alone and silent. Later, near graduation, Nora committed suicide. Only then did we know that her family was extremely poor. Her grandmother was bedridden all year round, and her father was a gambler who not only constantly physically abused her but also wanted to sell her to pay off debts. At this moment, she stood beside me, holding a clean towel in her hand. I was stunned for a moment and then took it. She didn't say anything more and turned to leave. Probably she thought there was nothing to talk about with a girl like me, the adopted daughter of the Sampson family. As I watched her back about to disappear, I suddenly spoke. Monitor. She stopped in her tracks. I scratched my head. Well, I just transferred here and I don't know the way yet. Where's the cafeteria? Can you take me there? On the table in the cafeteria were 4 dishes and 1 soup. Braised pork ribs, steamed egg with minced meat, Coca-Cola chicken wings, stir-fried Chinese flowering cabbage, and clam and winter melon soup. As expected of the best high school in City C, the cafeteria food was always something to be proud of. I scratched my head again. Oh, I ordered too much by accident. Wasting is shameful. You probably haven't had dinner yet. Right. Let's eat together. Nora was silent for a moment, and finally picked up her chopsticks and started eating little by little. I looked at her wrist sticking out from the sleeve of her school uniform, which was thin and bony. In fact, a girl like the monitor was the one who really needed help. But they weren't pretty and didn't cry out for pain, so they could only be the barren weeds in the memories of youth, not even having the qualification to be the female lead in an idol drama. In this life, I not only want to save myself but also her. Having made up my mind, I spoke. Oh, conic sections are so difficult. I can't understand them at all. Monitor, you're good at studying. Why don't you give me some tutoring? Nora was chewing on a piece of braised pork rib, looking shocked as if to say, do we know each other well? I didn't give her a chance to refuse. I put my arm around the monitor's shoulder and said cheerfully, it's settled then. I'll pay you for the tutoring. I gave the monitor part of my living expenses, saying it was advance payment for tutoring. She was so shocked when she saw the 100 red banknotes in the envelope that she couldn't say a word. In fact, whether in the previous life or this life, the Sampson family never short-changed their adopted daughter in terms of basic food, clothing, and living expenses. But the small amount of money for Roy was enough for Nora to buy medicine and pay for her grandmother's hospital bills. She could even rent a small house outside the school and stay away from her abusive father. After making an appointment with the monitor for the tutoring time the next day, I went home. The luxurious villa was empty. Mr. Sampson was out on business entertainment, and Mrs. Sampson was at the beauty salon for maintenance. As for Roy, he should be having dinner at the Parker family's now. In the previous life, Roy asked the driver to send me home, and the Parker family's adoptive parents saw it and warmly invited him to dinner. Then, just like in a standard plot of an idol drama, a simple dinner made the young master, who was used to the cold life in the wealthy family, feel the strong family affection in the poor family, the simple and honest smiles that were always on the faces of the Parker family's parents. The small, shabby but smoky room. All these made Roy yearn for it and made him like the poor girl born in such a family even more. At this moment, although he and Wendy were eating plain food, they should both be very happy. I slowly changed into a Hermes nightgown, washed my face with Chanel facial cleanser, ate a bowl of rock sugar bird's nest served by the nanny, and sneered at the corner of my mouth. No one knew that although the Parker family's couple was poor, they were not simple-hearted. The couple was patriarchal and originally wanted to adopt a boy, but there were no non-disabled boys in the orphanage, so they settled for the next best thing and decided to choose a beautiful girl, hoping to find a wealthy son-in-law in the future. When they saw Roy sending their daughter home, the couple was almost boiling with excitement. They immediately grabbed this potential son-in-law and entertained him well. The so-called family affection and the so-called smoky atmosphere were just a show. After all, to impress the young master of the wealthy family, these were the only things they could offer. In the previous life, when I told them that I didn't want to marry Roy, my adoptive mother locked me in the room, and my adoptive father almost beat me to death with a table leg and a belt. Wendy thought that this time she had entered heaven, but she didn't know that there was no real heaven in the world. The Sampson family was a wealthy hell, and the Parker family was a poor hell. As for who could crawl out of hell alive, it depended on one's own ability. In the following days, Roy's malice intensified. The lunch prepared by the nanny for me, when I opened the lunchbox, was filled with a box of thumbtacks. Dead spiders were squeezed out of my facial cleanser and toothpaste. The dresses in my wardrobe were burned with holes by cigarette butts, and every time I was startled and looked up, I could meet Roy's malicious smile. He mouthed to me, "Olivia, you deserve it." Roy thought I would cry, but I just calmly poured out the thumbtacks, threw the spiders into the trash can, and folded and put away the dresses. So, the smile on Roy's face disappeared. He stared at me intently and said through gritted teeth, "Let's see how long you can keep pretending." Fortunately, this time, although I had to endure Roy's malice, all the resources of the Sampson family also fell into my hands. I no longer had to go to school during the day and be forced to help my adoptive mother with work at night. On the contrary, a nanny is in charge of taking care of me, and a driver picks me up and drops me off when I go out. I only need to focus on my studies. In my previous life, if I wanted to buy extracurricular teaching materials, I had to save money for a long time on my own and be on guard against my adoptive father not taking my money to buy himself alcohol and play cards. Now, there are a large number of brand name dresses in the wardrobe, and there are Van Cleef Arpels and Cartier in the jewelry box. These are all given to me casually by Mrs. Sampson, and I don't need to pay for them myself. In addition, at the beginning of each month, I get $50,000 in pocket money in cash and a credit card with a limit of $100,000. If I run out of money, I just need to tell the housekeeper, and new money will be transferred to the card within half an hour. However, the difficult life I had in the past has now completely fallen on Wendy. I saw that she slept all through class because she had to help her adoptive mother with work at night and didn't get enough sleep. Gradually, she stopped doing her homework and started handing in blank test papers. In my previous life, I relied on black coffee to keep myself going. When I was extremely sleepy, I would prick myself with a compass and study desperately. But Wendy lived a life of luxury and comfort in her previous life. She didn't have the determination and perseverance, and she didn't care about her studies either. In her opinion, being the fiancée of the young master of the Sampson family was far more valuable than getting into Harvard University. So, Wendy put all her energy into making Roy like her more. She didn't listen in math class and secretly wrote a diary for Roy under the desk. She didn't come to dance rehearsals, climbed over the school gate and went for a drive in the suburbs with Roy to watch the stars. As a result, on the eve of the dance performance, she sat outside the rehearsal room and cried. I guess Wendy specifically studied the way the female lead in idol dramas cry, looking up at the sky at a 45-degree angle, with tears in her eyes, stubbornly refusing to let them fall. As a result, she was seen by Roy, who was passing by. The moment Roy asked her what was wrong, the tears that Wendy had been holding back finally fell. She threw herself into Roy's arms and burst into tears. Roy, I lost my chance to go on stage. All the girls in the class are going on stage, but Olivia won't let me participate. Roy, who already hated me extremely, got angry when he heard this. Why? Wendy bit her lip, trying her best to stop crying, but still couldn't help sobbing. She said that my mother is a cleaner and my father is a security guard. I can't even afford a performance costume and I'm not worthy to go on stage. Roy's face became uglier and uglier. He looked at Wendy, who was crying so hard that she was out of breath, and said softly, "Isn't it just a performance costume? I'll buy it for you." Wendy shook her head, showing the righteousness of a poor and innocent girl. No, one costs $800. I can't accept such an expensive gift from you. Roy was both angry and heartbroken. How dare Olivia do this? He blurted out in anger. Wendy shook her head with tears in her eyes. After all, she is your sister, the eldest lady of the Sampson family. Several buildings in the school were donated by your family, and your father is an honorary school director. Even if the teachers know she is bullying me, what can they do? Wendy didn't notice that at this time, a reporter who came to the school for an interview happened to pass by behind her, stretching his head. The reporter, like a shark smelling blood, asked sensitively. Bullying. What bullying? Just like that. The matter suddenly became a big deal. In the largest meeting room of the school, a large crowd stood densely. The principal, vice principal, dean of students, and class teacher, reporters from different newspapers, the parents of the Sampson and Parker families all came. Mr. and Mrs. Parker, protecting their tear-stained daughter Wendy, stood in a corner of the meeting room, with expressions of grievance and anger on their faces. Mr. and Mrs. Sampson, who originally didn't want to come when they received the call saying that I was in trouble, didn't arrive until they heard that even the newly appointed director of the Education Bureau was present. City See No. One high school is the best high school in the city and is also a model-setting school for the Education Bureau. Mr. Sampson apparently had an old acquaintance with the director of the Education Bureau. As soon as he entered the door, he went to the director's side and said tactfully, "Such a small matter has actually alerted Director Lee. Actually, it's just a conflict among the children." As a result, the director of the Education Bureau was very upright and didn't buy this at all. Mr. Sampson, bullying is never a small matter at any time. I know that Olivia is your daughter, but every child is a student and a young sapling to me. I can't let them go astray. Having said this, Mr. Sampson couldn't say anything more and could only show a smile. Yes, we don't know what happened either. You can investigate carefully. Returning to Mrs. Sampson's side, the two exchanged a silent look. I understood. If it was really proven that I was bullying, the Sampson family would immediately abandon me, their foster daughter with little affection, and cut off all ties with me completely. This was the attitude of Mr. and Mrs. Sampson. And as for Roy, he stood beside the sobbing Wendy, softly comforting her, and from time to time raised his pitch-black eyes to glance at me coldly. Seeing that everyone had arrived, the principal opened his mouth and asked Wendy, "Student Parker, tell us about the situation." Wendy raised her red-eyed and tear-stained face and repeated in a low voice what she had told Roy. The reporters were already filled with indignation. One of them took the lead and said, "We have investigated in advance. Olivia and Wendy were once friends in the same welfare home and were once called sisters. Later, Olivia was adopted by the Sampson group, while Wendy's adoptive parents are just ordinary school staff. Olivia, is it okay to bully your former partner and take away the opportunity that originally belonged to her just because you entered a wealthy family?" There was a dead silence. The reporters' eyes were all fixed on me, and the red dots of the cameras kept flashing. No one didn't want to dig out a big story. After all, this is a very sensitive social topic. In the current situation where social classes are gradually solidifying, if children from wealthy families keep taking away the educational resources that originally belonged to children from poor families and blocking the latter's upward path, it is enough to arouse considerable public anger. Not to mention that the protagonists of the news incident are such a dramatically contrasting pair as me and Wendy. In the office where a pin drop could be heard, I suddenly burst out laughing. The sound was very abrupt. The reporters all looked at each other in dismay. Dear reporter, I read in a book that news workers need to cross-verify and fact-check the information they get. What? Now, in a hurry to report a sensational news, you can directly skip the work steps. For a moment, the reporter's face turned red. I stood up and coldly pointed at Wendy. Now she is the only source of information, and all the situations are just her one-sided story. I looked at Wendy, who was crying so that her face was pale. I did once regard you as a sister, but in my previous life, you killed me out of jealousy. In this life, you try to climb up by framing me. So if I destroy you, it's your own fault. Since the reporter is asking me now, I'll tell you what I know. Wendy is jealous of me. She thinks that we were the same at the beginning, and she is even more beautiful and smarter than me. Why do I live a better life than her now? Out of jealousy, she made up this story to frame me. As soon as I said this, Roy immediately retorted, "Obviously, What he wanted to say was that Wendy had taken the initiative to choose the poor Parker family. So, she couldn't be a person who disliked poverty and loved wealth. And my statement was clearly reversing black and white. But before he could finish speaking, the door of the principal's office was suddenly pushed open. Outside the door stood a thin figure with short hair, silent, like an unremarkable weed. The head teacher of our class recognized her. Nora, what are you doing here? At this time in the previous life, Nora had already committed suicide. But in this life, she survived. Walking in step by step, Nora stood beside me. She said in a low voice, "I'm here to testify." She came in so abruptly that the reporters didn't react for a moment. Someone asked, "Student, are you here to testify that Olivia bullied Wendy?" After all, judging from her dress, Nora was obviously not from a wealthy family. At a glance, she seemed to be of the same kind as Wendy. Nora glanced at the person who asked the question and shook her head. She said, "I'm here to testify for Olivia." I looked at Nora in surprise. To be honest, I had made a lot of preparations in advance for this confrontation today. But Nora was not the witness I had prepared. After all, to be honest, our relationship wasn't very close. Last time after I gave her money, she checked the current tutoring fees on the market, calculated according to 1 hour a day, and then returned all the extra money to me. She taught me math for 1 hour every day, and when the time was up, she would carry her school bag and leave on time, like an AI robot with a set operating program. In the previous life, Nora committed suicide by jumping off a building before the college entrance examination. All her hopes were pinned on getting into a good university and making money as soon as possible to treat her grandmother's illness. As a result, 1 month before the college entrance examination, her father lost money gambling, drank several bottles of cheap white wine, and went home to give Nora the most severe beating ever. Nora's right hand was broken. That was the hand she used to write. No one knew what else Nora's father did that day and what the scarred Nora had experienced. When people found her again, this always silent girl had jumped off the rooftop. In this life, although Nora and I didn't become friends, I still wanted to save her. So, I hired 2 hooligans to beat Nora's father into the hospital. In this way, at least until the end of the college entrance examination, this man couldn't abuse his family. In order to prepare this matter carefully, I was absent from a self-study class for the first time. When I came back, I was caught red-handed by Nora, who was in charge of recording attendance. She asked me, "Why did you skip the self-study class?" I scratched my head, desperately thinking of an excuse. After all, I looked full of energy and had no illness or disaster. I couldn't tell her that I skipped class to beat your father. Just at this critical moment, Nora was called out by the teacher in the reception room. "Xiaoli, you have a phone call." It was the news that Nora's father had an accident. 5 minutes later, Nora came back, still with a calm expression on her face. She picked up the attendance sheet again and then put it down. "I won't record it this time," she said calmly. "Don't be absent again next time." At that time, I heaved a sigh of relief and quickly went back to my seat to study. At this moment, when Nora said, "I testify for Olivia," in the same calm tone, I suddenly realized that she might have known. Facing the eyes of everyone in the room, Nora took out a stack of forms and put them on the table. Wendy's face instantly turned snow white. According to the school's regulations, when entering the dance classroom for rehearsal, you need to fill out a form stating what time the classroom is borrowed and who the people borrowing the classroom are. But this was not strictly checked, and it was troublesome to fill out. So later almost no one filled it out. They just greeted the dance teacher and went directly. No one expected that Nora filled it out meticulously every time and kept all the forms. So, in full view of everyone could clearly see that there were more than 30 forms in total. And Wendy's name appeared in the personnel using the classroom section on only 2 of them. That is to say, she only participated in 2 of the more than 30 rehearsals. Seeing that everyone had seen the form clearly, Nora slowly opened her mouth. Wendy said that Olivia laughed at her for not being able to afford a performance costume, so she didn't let her go on stage. But when I told Olivia that I couldn't afford a performance costume and didn't want to participate, Olivia told me to continue rehearsing. The next day, I found that she had bought performance costumes for everyone. Wendy also said that Olivia bullied her because her father was a school worker and her mother was a cleaner. But my father doesn't even have a proper job, and the whole family lives on my grandmother's pension. Nora looked at me. If you would bully the poor, why didn't you bully me? This kind of self-exposing Scar's statement left everyone present stunned. In the silence, I sighed, took out my phone, and played a video on speaker. In this video, everyone could see that Wendy missed beats, forgot movements, and couldn't keep up. Among everyone, her poor performance was clearly obvious. Yes, after all, during the previous rehearsals, she had gone to watch the stars with Roy. In fact, Wendy didn't really want to participate in this performance at first. It was just that when she saw that I had removed her from the list, she went to Roy to distort the facts and play the victim, hoping that Roy would like her more and hate me more. She didn't expect this matter to become such a big deal, and I had such solid evidence and witnesses on my side. Originally, I shouldn't have made the decision to remove Wendy without authorization, but this dance performance has special enrollment bonus points. There are 2 girls in our group who are art students, and they are counting on these bonus points for further education. If I still let Wendy participate, it would delay the future of those 2 girls. Therefore, I had to make this decision. After the interview, the public opinion about me and Wendy reversed instantly. The classmates said that she had persecution delusion and started to stay away from her. Don't get too close to Wendy. Otherwise, if there's any conflict, she might say that you bully her because she's poor. To be fair, her family isn't that poor. Right. Her parents both have decent jobs. There are still many poor students in our school who are receiving student loans, but we haven't seen them crying and saying they're being bullied. Alas, some people just like to blame fate when they don't work hard. Surprisingly, Wendy remained very quiet throughout all this. She quietly went through the final self-review period until the college entrance examination ended, without causing any trouble. Nora reminded me, "Be careful. She's probably preparing a counterattack." I smiled and said, "It's okay. If she can be patient, so can I." I could feel that Wendy was secretly up to something, because at home, it was obvious that Roy's attitude towards me was getting worse and worse. In the past, when he bullied me, he would at least avoid Mr. and Mrs. Sampson. Now, during a family meal, he suddenly slammed the bowl full of chicken soup on the table, and the hot oil-splattered soup immediately splashed onto my face. The nanny beside us let out a cry of surprise and quickly brought me an ice pack and burn ointment. Throughout the whole process, Mrs. Sampson kept her head down, drinking soup as if she didn't see anything. Mr. Sampson slightly raised his head and said to Roy, "Be more careful with your actions. Don't make people think our children have no manners." Mr. and Mrs. Sampson simply didn't care about me. To them, I was just an emotionless foster daughter. They brought me home after listening to a fortune teller, just like placing a money tree there for good luck. In my previous life, Wendy had tried to build a relationship with Mr. and Mrs. Sampson. Facts proved that this idea was completely wrong. When Mr. and Mrs. Sampson were busy, they would leave their biological son to the nanny. How could they develop a relationship with a foster daughter? In a wealthy family, talking about feelings is the most useless. Talking about interests is what works. So, I put down the ice pack and calmly said, "Dad, Mom, there's something I want to tell you. I got 718 points in the college entrance examination and I'm the top scorer in science." As soon as I finished speaking, Mr. and Mrs. Sampson suddenly looked up at the same time. Even Roy widened his eyes. I picked up a chopstick of stir-fried Chinese kale, ate it slowly, and then, facing the surprised gazes of the 3 people at the table, I said lightly, Mom and Dad said before that studying is our own business. So I didn't think of reporting it. But the teacher just called me and said that some reporters want to interview you about your educational experience. That's why I came to ask if you two are available. In my previous life, even though I worked part-time while studying, I still had good grades. In this life, having learned the same knowledge again without various obstacles, my grades skyrocketed. Mr. and Mrs. Sampson looked at each other in dismay. Before this, they had never paid attention to the college entrance examination. Roy had already applied to a school in Australia long ago. As soon as he graduated from high school, he would be sent abroad to study and didn't need to take the college entrance examination. As for me, their foster daughter, they let nature take its course and didn't bother to care. No one expected me to do so well. I want to apply to the School of Management at UCL. I looked at Mr. Sampson. I plan to intern in the investment department of Dad's group during my freshman year. Mr. Sampson was silent for 2 seconds. When he spoke again, there was a smile on his face. It's good that you have this intention, Olivia. Congratulations. Lisa, bring the red wine in my trunk. Olivia should be 18 years old by now. Right. Let's celebrate today. I ignored Roy's gloomy gaze, which seemed as if it could drip water. I raised my glass and clinked it with Mr. and Mrs. Sampson, gently expressing my gratitude for their cultivation. I bet right. Mr. and Mrs. Sampson didn't care about an ordinary foster daughter. But what if the foster daughter was the top scorer in the college entrance examination? That would be the glory of the family, a sign of successful parenting, and the hope for the future. Mr. and Mrs. Sampson were very happy. They opened several bottles of treasured red wine, made an appointment with me for the time of the reporter interview, and then went back to rest slightly tipsy. Only Roy and I were left at the table. The light of the crystal lamp shone on Roy's face, making it look dark and unclear. He inherited Mrs. Sampson's appearance, with a straight nose and deep-set eyes, looking like a handsome and unrestrained young master of a wealthy family. However, at this moment, he looked at me with those beautiful eyes, and the gaze in his pitch-black eyes was cold. Olivia, you don't think that you can become a real member of my family just like this, do you? I stood up, gracefully put the chair back in place, then leaned close to Roy's ear and said softly, Master, get your facts straight. It's your parents who now want to be a real family with me. On the day I went back to school to get my transcript, I saw Wendy. She stood in the shadows, looking at me with expressions of jealousy, confusion, and anger. I knew that she had just seen the video of Mr. and Mrs. Sampson and me being interviewed together. In the video, Mrs. Sampson put her arm around my shoulder, and Mr. Sampson talked eloquently to the host. The host complimented him from time to time, saying that he was both a successful entrepreneur and a successful educator. At the end, our family of 3 took a group photo, looking like a perfect family in an advertisement. This was something Wendy had never achieved in her previous life. She looked at me and said in a low, resentful voice, What tricks did you use? I shrugged. Do you believe that I just studied hard and made progress every day? After saying that, I turned around and left. Wendy definitely didn't believe it. But this was exactly the only solution. I heard Wendy say softly behind me, Even if you get the love of Mr. and Mrs. Sampson, it's useless. Roy loves me. Very well. The standard match for the female lead in an idol drama is to be with the male lead, even if their parents don't support them, even if they are against the whole world. I wish her well. As a result, 10 minutes later, I saw the male lead of the idol drama himself. Roy was followed by a group of lackeys, who blocked me in the corridor. At this time, the teachers and students had already left, and the teaching building was empty. Even if I called for help, no one would hear me. I looked up and felt a chill in my heart. Even the surveillance cameras had been broken in advance. This was a well-planned ambush. Roy stood in front of me and said in a low voice, Olivia, it's time to wake up from your dream of a carp leaping over the dragon gate. Today, I'll show you what happens to hypocritical people. As soon as he finished speaking, the lackeys beside him rushed forward, grabbed my hair, and slammed me into the wall. With a loud bang, the wall dust fell. I was in so much pain that stars appeared in front of my eyes. But somehow I found the strength to kick hard at the lackey's crotch. There was a scream, and the lackey fell to the ground. His facial features twisted in pain. Roy's expression changed. Just as he was about to order the other lackeys to go forward, I suddenly took out a red wine bottle from my school bag. It was a red wine bottle that Mr. Sampson gave me for a dinner party in the evening, asking me to drink it with my classmates. At this moment, I smashed the bottle against the wall, and the red liquid and fragments splashed everywhere. Then I held the bottle, pointing the sharp edges at the dozen or so boys. "Come on," I shouted. My hair was in a mess, covered with dirty wall dust. Warm liquid flowed from my nose to my chin. It should be blood. I didn't know how crazy I looked at the moment, but apparently, these dozen or so boys were intimidated by me, and no one came forward for a while. I reached out and wiped the nosebleed, and laughed. Hypocritical. Roy, you really know how to talk. Fine. I'm hypocritical. And you're righteous. At least the hypocritical me donates money and saves people. What about our righteous young Master Sampson, who has received your help? Oh, could it be only your beloved innocent girl? In the distance, Wendy bit her lip and hid to the side. Actually, she didn't need to hide. I had seen her long ago. Roy was going to stand up for her and teach me a lesson. How could she miss this good show? The nosebleed kept flowing and couldn't be wiped clean. I simply ignored it, looking at Roy and then at the dozen or so people behind him. I smiled calmly. Roy, you brought so many people here and made such a big commotion. You'd better not let me go back alive today. Otherwise, the smile on my face disappeared. If you let me leave alive, I will drag you to hell with me. Roy's face paled, just as Wendy had said. Mr. Sampson was an honorary school director, and the Sampson family was powerful. As long as Roy didn't really cause serious trouble when bullying classmates at school, many teachers would turn a blind eye. But killing someone at school, Roy didn't have the guts. He stared at me for a long time and then said in a low voice, "A scheming woman like you. Dying now would be too easy for you." I laughed loudly. Is this considered scheming? Do you want to know what real scheming is like? Looking at Roy, a thrilling sense of pleasure surged in my heart. Finally, I can tell you. I said word by word. The reporter who investigated the bullying incident was found by me. In an instant, the pupils of both Roy and Wendy dilated. You thought, why was it such a coincidence that a casual mention of bullying was immediately heard by the reporter who came to the school for an interview? Because I found that reporter, I sent anonymous letters to several newspapers, reporting that there was serious bullying at City C No. 1 high school. If this was true, it would be on the front page headline, so they would definitely send someone to investigate. I knew that with Wendy's inflexible mind, after I removed her from the dance performance program, she would most likely come to you and say that I bullied her. Coincidentally, on one side she was crying to you, and on the other side the reporter was conducting an undercover investigation. It was a perfect match. The reporter would definitely investigate me. Of course, I had prepared everything I needed, and in the end, I could prove my innocence. But Roy, think about it. After the reporters found out that this was a misunderstanding and that I wasn't the one bullying, would they stop or continue to investigate? Roy's face suddenly lost all color. I smiled and said, understand. The whole incident was prepared for you. Among those 7 or 8 reporters that day, even if only 2 of them continued to investigate, it would be enough to give you a hard time. You should have heard what the director of the Education Bureau said. He hates bullying the most. If your bullying incident is exposed, even Dad can't protect you. See, young Master Sampson, this is called scheming. After I finished speaking with a smile, Roy's face looked extremely ugly, and the boys beside him couldn't hold their composure anymore. What should we do, Brother Sampson? Are the reporters still in the school? If they find us here, We're done for. If it's recorded, it'll be a lifelong thing. These boys were basically from ordinary families. They dared to follow Roy to do bad things just because they thought Roy had a powerful backer and nothing would happen. But the scene of the group interview by the reporters in the meeting room that day was enough to scare anyone. I was at least nominally a daughter of the Sampson family, and I almost lost my reputation, let alone others. I masterminded the whole thing as a warning. The investigation was about the false bullying by me, but the intimidation was for the real bullying by Roy. So, dear brother, please take good care of me. Support me in my work at the Sampson Group. I leaned close to Roy, smiling sweetly. Otherwise, I'll drag the Sampson family down with me. Suddenly, my smile disappeared. I knocked Roy's neck with the broken wine bottle and then turned around and left. No one stopped me throughout the whole process. Only Wendy's crying voice came from behind. Roy, how can you just let her go like this? Roy's cold and irritable voice replied. Get out. Roy seemed to suddenly become obedient. In the past, at any banquet of the Sampson family, he never let me participate. This time, when someone invited him to attend a dinner party, he took the initiative to say to Mrs. Sampson, Mom, I'll take my sister with me. Could you help my sister prepare a formal dress? On the phone, I heard Wendy arguing with him. Shouldn't you take me as your female companion? Roy's voice was impatient. I've already paid for you to go to Australia to study with me. What else do you want? Wendy did very poorly in the college entrance examination. She didn't study well in her previous life, and she focused all her thoughts on pleasing the Sampson family. In this life, from an easy mode to a hell mode, her grades were even worse. The only way out for her was to hold on tightly to Roy and be with him. But I could tell that Roy was getting a bit annoyed. At first, Wendy attracted Roy with the stubborn independence of a poor and innocent girl. Someone who couldn't be corrupted by wealth or subdued by force. But this wasn't really her true nature. One can pretend for a while, but it's hard to pretend for a lifetime. Roy liked the kind of girl who was poor but would say no to luxury gifts. Not the kind of girl who would cry and pester him to take her along to study in Australia. But there was no other way. Wendy could pretend to be the former, but she really couldn't pretend to be the latter, because she had no other way out. If Roy didn't take her, she would really be trapped in that suffocating Parker family. After the summer vacation ended, Wendy and Roy went to Australia together. Actually, Roy had never publicly said that Wendy was his girlfriend, but Wendy's parents couldn't wait. They hired paparazzi to follow Roy and Wendy, took pictures of the two of them, and posted them online. The young master of the Sampson Group and his girlfriend have an intimate dinner. The two are childhood sweethearts. When Mr. Sampson saw the report, he threw his phone. Despicable tactics. She's not even graduated from college yet, and they're already trying to shove her into our family. After Roy came home, Mr. Sampson gave him a scolding. If you want to get married, wait for your mom and me to arrange it for you. You can date a few girls casually on your own, but don't bring me someone who looks so unrefined. Roy listened silently, his eyes quietly looking at me sitting on the side all the time. I felt his gaze, but I just buried my head in reading the financial reports. Wendy's parents were the same in the previous life. As soon as Roy showed a little affection for me, they couldn't wait to drug me and send me directly to the Sampson family's bed. As for Mr. and Mrs. Sampson, they also strongly opposed Roy marrying a girl from such a family in the previous life. Unfortunately, they didn't live long enough and passed away before Roy got married. Mr. Sampson scolded Roy and then forbade him to meet Wendy during the holidays. Roy didn't resist. He stayed at home all the time and occasionally showed kindness to me. He bought me expensive diamond earrings as a birthday gift. When I had a party with friends until very late, he drove and waited outside the bar to pick me up. Nora sat next to me, holding a glass of non-alcoholic mojito, looking at Roy outside who had smoked one cigarette after another. She opened her mouth, wanting to say something to me. I directly reached out to stop her. I know what you want to say. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. After saying goodbye to my friends, I sat in the passenger seat of Roy's car. He handed me a bag. I looked down and saw hangover soup and small cakes from my favorite dessert shop. I smiled and said, "Roy, there's no need." He stepped on the gas pedal in silence and didn't say anything. It was quiet all the way. When we got home, I threw the hangover soup and the small cakes into the trash can. Roy just stood there watching and didn't say anything in the end. I went back to my room and didn't want to care about him. Nora studied computer science at Harvard next door. Recently, she developed a program that can improve the efficiency of enterprise personnel management. This was a great opportunity to start her own business. I had been interning in the strategic investment department of the Samson Group for almost 3 years and had gained some say. I decided to allocate $2 million to Nora to jointly establish a company. She was in charge of technology, and I was in charge of business. There were many things to be busy with recently. In comparison, Roy was really not that important. I didn't expect that Wendy saw Roy sending me home. She hadn't seen Roy for a long time, so she waited at the entrance of the villa area, hoping to see Roy. As a result, she happened to see me getting out of Roy's car. I could imagine that at that moment, Wendy was extremely frightened. She probably saw the scene from her previous life again, Roy coldly asking her to leave the house with nothing, but then gently putting a wedding dress on me. That was her deepest nightmare. Early Monday morning, after meeting with a potential client, I left the company building with the materials in my arms. As a result, at the stairway, I saw a familiar figure. Wendy had lost weight. Her cheeks were slightly sunken, and her eyes were bloodshot. Despite that, she was still beautiful, with a small face and eyes like a Barbie doll, like a star torn from a pictorial. In fact, back in the welfare home, Wendy was the most beautiful among all the children. Almost every adoptive family would notice her at first sight. If she hadn't been so picky, she would have been adopted long ago. Precisely because of this, she was particularly unwilling to accept her fate. Walking towards me step by step, Wendy stopped in front of me. She was wearing high-heeled shoes, making her half a head taller than me, and flat shoes for business trips. Wendy said, "I'm pregnant. It's Roy's child." I said, "Really? Then it might be better not to wear such high-heeled shoes." Wendy stared at my face, trying to find any trace of emotional change, but she found nothing. So, she was the first to break down. "Olivia, what else do you have up your sleeve? What method did you use to snatch Roy from me? Clearly, in this life, the person he likes should be me. You should be the one he hates the most. He shouldn't leave you a single penny in the future. Why have I studied all the ways you used to please him in the previous life and followed them? But he's still getting colder and colder towards me. What tricks are you still hiding from me?" I looked at the breaking down and crying Wendy. After a long time, I just sighed. "Excuse me, I have another client to visit." Wendy looked up at me. "Olivia, you won't tell me, right? It doesn't matter." At that moment, I realized something, but it was too late. Wendy stepped forward, hugged me tightly, and then leaned backward. We rolled down the stairs together. With a loud thud, Wendy and I fell to the bottom of the stairs. My head hit the railing, and everything went black in front of my eyes. There was a sharp pain in my knees, and I couldn't even tell which leg was still movable. In the confusion, I only heard Wendy crying out, "Roy!" With great effort, I raised my head and vaguely saw the person in front of me. It was Roy. Blood spread from under Wendy's skirt. She cried and said, "Roy, our child is gone. It was your sister who pushed me. She said that if our child was born, it would take away her share of the family property." Roy's face turned ashen. After a long time, he bent down and picked me up. Wendy's eyes widened in shock. She looked at Roy in disbelief and cried mournfully. Roy said coldly. "Wendy, you disgust me." Wendy started to tremble all over. This was her nightmare. In the previous life, Roy often said this to her. "Wendy, you disgust me." In this life, the choices were different, and the process was different. But why was the ending still the same? Wendy seemed to go crazy. She shrieked, Why? I clearly made the right choice. The right choice. Why? No matter what I choose, the result is always the same. I didn't hear what she said later. The dizziness from the back of my head became stronger and stronger. The world gradually fell into darkness. The hospital room was filled with a faint smell of disinfectant. I opened my eyes, and Roy was sitting by the bedside. He said in a low voice, "Wendy called me there. She probably planned to frame you. But I arrived early, so I heard the whole conversation between you two. Olivia, you just focus on getting better and don't think about anything else. Also, about that child of Wendy's. She drugged the juice she gave me. My legs still hurt, and the back of my head hurt too." But I still interrupted Roy bluntly. "Excuse me, are you explaining to me?" Roy was stunned. I pulled the quilt up a bit. "If Mom and Dad question you about this, you naturally have to explain it to them. But I don't seem to have anything to do with this, do I?" Roy was silent for a long time and then said softly, "I want to break up with her." There was an awkward silence. I smiled and said, "This seems to have even less to do with me." Roy looked at me with a panicked expression. "Olivia, do you really not understand what I mean?" I looked quietly into Roy's eyes. His gaze became more and more expectant. When this expectation reached its peak, I laughed. "Of course I understand. Roy, you're the world's greatest masochist." Roy's eyes dimmed instantly. He was silent for a long time before saying in a low voice, I know I've done a lot of wrong things, but I'm willing to spend the rest of my life trying to get your forgiveness. When you first came to my house, I really hated you, but I don't know why. Later I couldn't help but care more and more about you. When you threatened me in the school corridor, saying that you would drag the Sampson family to hell, I wasn't even angry. On the contrary, I found that you were completely different from what I imagined. Strong, brave, and full of vitality. It's the way I like. After the soft confession, Roy lowered his head and murmured, "Recently, I often have a dream. In the dream, I got married, and the bride was you. I held your hand in the dream and said that from then on, mine would be yours. Olivia, we can be very happy." I smiled and said, "Well, Roy, we can be very happy. How about this? If you drink the water in the toilet, I'll consider it." "Okay." Roy left. He said he knew I couldn't forgive him right away, but he was willing to wait. After Roy left the hospital room, Nora, who had been waiting outside, came to my side. I glanced at her. "Did you hear everything?" "I heard." "Then what do you want to say to me now?" "I want to ask if the intention of the client this morning is more than 50% and when we can finalize the contract." "You heartless thing. Shouldn't you at least ask me when I'll be discharged from the hospital first?" "I already asked the doctor at the door. He said the day after tomorrow." "I've already adjusted the subsequent work schedule accordingly. The next roadshow is tentatively scheduled for the day after that. Can't you let me rest for a few more days?" "No. I know what's most important to you." I was very satisfied. With such an excellent business partner, why should I worry about not being rich? After the roadshow, I set aside a day to go to the hospital to see Wendy. She had lost her child and was lying in the hospital bed, listless. The flesh on her face had all gone. Roy had already broken up with her. During the days she was in the hospital, Wendy's parents never came to accompany her. The only group of guests who came were the last people she expected, the director of the welfare home and several friends who were also orphans. Olivia helped us reimburse the travel expenses. Over the years, she has been donating money to us. Thanks to her, Xiaoduo and Lily's conditions have improved a lot. The director said. Wendy was stunned. In fact, most of the children in the welfare home had difficulty finding adoptive families. They were abandoned, some because of physical disabilities, some because of intellectual disabilities, and some because of terminal illnesses. Compared to them, Wendy and I were healthy and beautiful, already among the luckiest of the lucky ones. At that time, the director told us that we were a big family, and all the children were brothers and sisters. But after leaving the welfare home, Wendy never thought of her brothers and sisters again. On the contrary, in my previous life, I often went back to do volunteer work. After entering the Sampson family in this life, I directly made large donations to treat the disabled children and find them a way out. Watching these children stutteringly discussing Sister Olivia in front of her, Wendy suddenly burst into tears. She cried for a long time. So long that when the director of the welfare home took the children to say goodbye to her and I came to her side, she didn't even notice. I calmly waited for her to finish crying. After a long while, Wendy covered her face with her hands and said in a low voice, "Do you hate me very much?" Before I could answer, Wendy preempted, "I hate you too. I just wanted to live a better life." What's wrong with that? I thought for a moment. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that you used the wrong methods. Wendy looked at me. Are you saying that I'm not as kind, innocent, or caring as you? I shook my head. That's not it. Wendy, your biggest mistake is that, in both past and present lives, you've always thought about getting a share of others' cakes. But why should others' cakes be given to you? And even if you do get it, how do you know there's no poison in it? The right way is to make your own cake. Wendy cried out. What right do you have to lecture me? Don't you want to get a share of the Sampson family's property? I shook my head. I don't. The $2 million I took from the Sampson Group, after the company Nora and I founded made a profit, has been returned with both principal and interest. As for the clothes and jewelry Mrs. Sampson gave me, the valuable ones are sealed in the safe, and I've made a list. I hope to completely cut off ties with the Sampson family in the future. The reason is simple. The Sampson Group made its fortune in real estate. In the past 30 years, there have been incidents and deaths during the process of seizing land and building buildings. There are countless under-the-table deals. Mr. Sampson is shrewd and can suppress these things for now, but it's impossible to suppress them forever. Holding this money that's stained with blood and dirt will surely lead to trouble sooner or later. When that time comes, everyone related to the Sampson Group will end up in prison. Wendy couldn't understand this and just stared at me blankly. After a long time, she said in a low voice, "In 2 lifetimes, I've lost to you." I gently shook my head and then leaned closer to her. This was the purpose of my visit. I had something to say to Wendy. Wendy, in 2 lifetimes, you've been chasing after me, as if I were your biggest enemy. But let me ask you, in these 2 lifetimes, was I really the one who ruined you? It was as if a bolt of lightning struck Wendy. She trembled all over and burst into loud sobs. I turned around and left, never looking back. Time flew by. On the day the company Nora and I founded went public, I saw the news. At the entrance of the Sampson Group building, Wendy stabbed Roy with a knife. Nora was beside me and also saw this news. In the news, Wendy had been arrested by the police, and Roy was being rescued, his life hanging in the balance. Nora took one look and then looked away. I deliberately teased her. "Aren't you going to ask me if I'm worried about Roy?" she said. "You're not worried. But he loved me deeply later, didn't he?" Nora said expressionless. "Stay with the little girl and be friends with her." As a result, a month before the college entrance examination, her father came back with a piece of news. "Your grandma is not going to make it." Nora felt a chill run through her bones. Her father was drunk and kept muttering to himself, "It's an incurable disease, and it keeps costing money. The doctor said there's only a 30% chance of success for the surgery." So I said no. Taking her home would also mean spending more money. So I left her in the hospital corridor. That old hag. She just knows how to drag me down. Nora's ears were buzzing. She rummaged through her school bag and found the last bit of money, the money she had saved for her college tuition. She rushed towards the hospital. She wanted to save her grandma, but her father stopped her. "Little brat. So you have money. Why didn't you take it out when your dad was being chased by creditors yesterday?" Nora struggled desperately, but she was so thin, with arms and legs as thin as bean sprouts. No matter how she flailed, she had no strength. Her father snatched her money and then gave her the worst beating. "Fuck you, little brat. I gave you life. Your life belongs to me. Even if I beat you to death today, you deserve it." Nora passed out. When she woke up again,
Her father had already gone out to drink with the money. She rushed to the hospital like crazy. The familiar doctor shook his head at her regretfully. Grandma had passed away. What's wrong with your right hand? The doctor noticed Nora's hand. Nora looked at her arm. It was at a very strange angle. Even a layperson could tell that it was definitely broken. She declined the doctor's offer to take an X-ray and stumbled home alone. On the way, a girl stopped her. The girl was wearing a pair of gold-rimmed glasses and a white shirt. She looked very gentle and was about the same age as her. Do you want to start over? The girl seemed to be saying something, but Nora couldn't hear clearly. Finally, the girl stuffed a note with a string of numbers into her hand. If you want to start over, write your name, birthday, and address in a text message and send it to this number. I can make you start over. Nora sat on the rooftop. She thought about the girl's words. Start over. What would starting over be like? In this life, she had really tried so hard. What could be better if she started over? Give the chance to someone who needed it. So, Nora took out her phone. As the monitor, she had the information of all the classmates in the class list. She found the little girl's information. It was said that because the little girl refused to be with that rich second generation, her parents had locked her up and beaten her. She was so poor. Let her start over. She was so full of energy. Given the chance to start over, she would surely live a better life. Nora picked up her phone. With her right hand broken, she clumsily typed the little girl's information with her left hand. The text message was sent successfully. Nora let out a sigh of relief. With overwhelming despair, and a little bit of blessing, she jumped off. Nora woke up. She remembered that she had just jumped off the building. But she woke up in bed. There were many chaotic shadows in her mind. She couldn't tell if they were dreams or real experiences that had been forgotten. It should not be real. After all, an ordinary person like her didn't deserve to be reborn like the heroines in those novels. So, it must be a dream. The alarm clock rang, and Nora got up to go to school. Today, a big event happened at school. The eldest daughter of the Sampson family transferred to their class. Nora vaguely remembered that she seemed to have dreamed of this scene. In the dream, this eldest daughter of the Sampson family was being bullied in the toilet. She went up and handed her a towel, advising her to expose it. But she waved her hand away. Expose it. That's my brother. So this time, Nora didn't plan to meddle. She just handed a towel and then turned to leave. As a result, this eldest daughter of the Sampson family called out to her. Monitor. Nora stopped in her tracks. At that moment, she felt that this voice had appeared many times in her dreams. The eldest daughter of the Sampson family seemed to be a very friendly person. She invited Nora to dinner and asked Nora to be her tutor. After teaching twice, Nora found that the eldest daughter learned conic sections even better than herself. She was trying every means to find reasons to give her money while also protecting her fragile self-esteem. Nora had never cried since she was a child, but at that moment, her nose felt a bit sour. Thanks to the eldest daughter of the Sampson family, Nora had a lot of savings besides her living expenses. She found a good hospital for her grandma to have the surgery, and the surgery was successful. As for her father, he was beaten into the hospital for no apparent reason. Nora probed the eldest daughter of the Sampson family to see if she had anything to do with this. The eldest daughter of the Sampson family pretended to be stupid the whole time, but she couldn't suppress the corners of her mouth any more than an AK-47. Nora was a bit speechless. She just didn't like to talk. Not that she was stupid. Later, Nora's father was discharged from the hospital but got into trouble with new creditors. The place that had been broken before was broken again and pierced into his heart. It was said that when he was found, there was still a tiny chance of rescuing him. But Nora took the initiative to sign, indicating that the family member voluntarily gave up treatment. Nora scattered her father's ashes into the sewage ditch and hired a caregiver to take care of her grandma. After settling these two major concerns, she was admitted to Harvard as she wished. She had so many things she wanted to do. For example, the eldest daughter of the Sampson family said she wanted to start a business. Then, she hoped to be her partner. Later, the content of the dream gradually became clear. Nora remembered. It turned out that the eldest daughter of the Sampson family was the little girl from the previous life. In this life, she had indeed changed her fate. Her choice was worth it. Later, Nora asked Olivia, in the previous life, was there anything that impressed you particularly deeply? Olivia looked a bit confused. There are so many. Which one do you mean? Nora said. It's not really a thing. Actually, it's just a scene. On that day, under the still, dark sky, two little girls in thin school uniforms were jogging in the morning. They were the two people who got up the earliest in this school, and also the most hard-working ones. The long and barren adolescence was like the dark winter night, with no end in sight. The short-haired and thin little girl couldn't run anymore. She wanted to stop. So, the other long-haired little girl ran to her side, grabbed her hand, and led her towards the faint light ahead. The faint light grew brighter, and the world was about to be illuminated. Will we really have a bright future? We definitely will. At this moment, Nora and Olivia were standing hand in hand under the spotlight. She thought. It didn't matter if she didn't remember, because the promise had been fulfilled. They were really standing in the future they had once looked forward to.